Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 163. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. It is officially training camp week. The players report Wednesday, first practice on Thursday. Of course, we'll be there for all 15. So, Dave, this is really our last pre-training camp / off-season episode, and so we've made it. It has not felt like an off-season. The off switch has not existed for Pittsburgh this year. Another new announcement today on jerseys we'll talk about in a second, but we have gotten through the off-season.
Yeah, happy training camp week. And my wife asked me this the other day, we never went down to like 2 shows a week.
We never did.
Did we? I
They
know
didn't
I
let us.
missed.
You
Yeah.
didn't let us.
I know I missed a couple on the way, but we had fill-ins. I think you missed 1 or 2 or whatnot, had fill-ins. But it's gone by, especially since mandatory minicamp got done, and all these last 4.5, 5 weeks have gone pretty quick. Obviously been busy with TJ Watt watch and Aaron Rodgers stuff and everything associated with it. But it's been they've kept us busy, I think, is what have you been putting out on Twitter? Never a dull moment or something like that. And it seems like that's been a case. Man, the Steelers in the news cycle all off season has really kept us busy, and they're keeping us busy today with these 1933 throwbacks that they announced for the Sunday night game against the Green Bay Packers. What's that, week 8 or so? So I guess we'll start there. We've got to finish out the 90 and 30 series that I wrapped up on Sunday there. So most of the show will be going over the remaining players on that, and we might have a few other tidbits to get to here.
Let's talk about the big announcement by the team today. It's been teased for weeks and months. There's been a banner on the team website for the past week. Their title is Forged, and the jersey's reflective of that, wearing the 1933 throwback uniforms, as you said, Dave, week 8 in that primetime night game against the Green Bay Packers. It'll be Aaron Rodgers' first game facing the team that drafted him in Green Bay, and fitting, as the announcement alluded to, 2 historic franchises, 2 of the oldest in the NFL, the Packers and the Steelers, and so it's appropriate to wear it on that day. Pittsburgh wore these throwbacks, a different version of them, but wore them in 1994, and they'll bring them back in 2025. So aesthetically, I know they may not be the most attractive jerseys and uniforms in the world, but I love the homage to a 1933 team. No one thinks about those early year Steelers. Everyone kind of feels like the franchise began in 1972 with the Immaculate Reception. They were playing 30, 40 years before then. So I do love the historical aspect to this. So I kind of love these jerseys, even though objectively they may not be the most beautiful looking throwbacks Pittsburgh has ever worn.
Yeah, they're definitely not the Batman uniforms, what I was wishing for, and we had some rumblings about gold helmet and all, and they're actually calling they calling it a reimagined helmet design, features a gray mask and matte yellow finish, honoring a combination of the Steelers' uniform history with inspiration from the 1930s and 1960s. And then the jerseys, a black striping pattern with black trimmed oversized. I do like because if you look back at the what was the last year that they wore the similar ones to this? 1980.
94, they wore
94.
The 33 throwbacks.
Yeah, remember with that one, it had the number up in the, what would have been, the right corner, I think, and it was a smaller one. So now they put the larger white numbers on the front of the jersey, much larger and all, and then on the back, I think it's black name on the gold jersey with a black numeral. So shouldn't be that hard, I don't think, to pick out in the all 22 and all. But and then you got the beige beige pants that emulate the origins of the 1933 khaki uniform with a remastered Nike design for a more athletic fit. And then obviously the Pittsburgh City crest in the top left part of the front of the jersey there. So, yeah, I mean, a little bit different than I think what a lot of people probably imagined overall, but will definitely be interesting to watch them break these things out against the Green Bay Packers in week 8.
Yeah, this one surprised me a little bit because some of the reporting was suggesting this would be more similar to what they had worn in 2011 through, or excuse me, 2007 through 2011, and kind of didn't realize it was going to be the true throwback to the first ever team. So I do like this. I'm no fashion expert, and to each their own, beauty and eyes and beholders and all that kind of stuff. But I just love the history aspect of it. The crest is really cool. I think everyone can probably agree to that. So I like him overall. And those Steelers teams in 33, I mean, they, went through some tough years, founded the team in the Great Depression, and they were called the Pirates back then it was a common tactic by NFL teams to try to drum up more support by borrowing from the MLB popular namesake. So I don't know. I just love the history of written about the 33 team plenty of times. And so I think it's really cool.
I think the thing upon seeing them initially, right when the news broke at the top of the hour, is those larger white numerals on the front outlined in with black outline there. Those kind of popped off to me real quick. So I would say the thing that I like most about them are the numerals on the front being large and in white, and then obviously the Pittsburgh crest shield up there in the top left of the uniform.
And the helmets are really cool too. I think in '94, I believe they wore black helmets, and so these gold helmets, which the team, doesn't always wear, I think is really, really a sharp look.
If you go back to the 1994 one, looking at a picture of them, they had the white numbers up on the right shoulder pad, and it was kind of hard to see who, especially if you look at the player coming your way, hard to kind of pick up on that. So a little bit different there. But as usual, I think probably half the fans will like them, half the people will hate them, and the other half, can you have three halves? Will be kind of indifferent to them, but they'll probably grow on people the closer we get time to game time there.
They'll look better with a win against the Green Bay Packers, that is for sure. And the good news is Pittsburgh has got a good track record with their throwbacks. There's something like, I forget what I wrote in the post, I don't know, 12-3 or something like that. They have a pretty strong record. They're good in primetime football, so hopefully all that comes together for a big win over Green Bay in Week 8.
All right. I don't really have much add. I'm not a fashionista or anything along those lines. Those bumblebees. I know a lot of people like those, but the thing I remember most about the bumblebees is they were so hard to pick up when watching the All 22 and the numbers and all like that. Outside of that, I thought they were okay, but I like these better than I do the bumblebees.
Yeah, these are two men. You wear cargo shorts. I wear athletic shorts 98% of the time. So neither of us are really qualified to weigh in on probably the beauty of them. But again, I put me in the fan camp to honor anything in those early Steelers days.
All right.
All right, Dave, let's jump into our 90 and 30 series. We'll put a bow on it. You finished writing it over the weekend, so congratulations on another year previewing the Steelers training camp roster. Let's dive on in with where we left off, and we'll begin with punter Corliss Waitman, who was signed after Cameron Johnston suffered that season-ending knee injury in the opener last season. Waitman filled in. I thought filled in admirably overall. He will now battle a healthy Cameron Johnston in training camp. We talked about Johnston before, that we feel like it's his job to lose. If he's healthy and punts well, he probably wins it, but Waitman, a competent and I think capable punter who can find himself on a roster elsewhere, if not in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and look, you got Cameron Johnston coming off of this serious knee injury from week 1 of the 2024 regular season, and At least thankfully for him, it happened as early as it did, giving him a lot of time to rehab and all. And you look at all the IG videos and tracking him throughout the summer practices and all. It seems like he's going to be ready to go for the start of training camp. But when Waitman came in, I thought he did a admirable job overall. Served, obviously as a Steelers punter from week 2 and on, finished last season having punted 65 times for a 46.4 average with a long of 71 yards, had just 5 touchbacks last season. 27 of his punts landed inside the opponent's 20-yard line, had a net punting average of 41.4, which tied him for 12th overall in the NFL. He did not have a punt blocked, and none were returned for touchdowns either. In the lone playoff game last season, punted 5 times for 51.4 average. His net on those 5 was 50.6, and all 5 of those punts went inside the opponent's 20-yard line, and none resulted in touchbacks. So you can't blame that loss to the Ravens on him. As expected, he was asked to hold for Chris Boswell last season. I thought he did a really admirable job on that phase of his game. Probably there were a handful of 3, 4, 5 of them that I thought he did a good job of getting those snaps down on. Boswell obviously went on to have a career season in 2024, and a lot of times you take for granted, right, that the whole battery and the exchange and everything like that. But it is a science. He seems to have mastered that part of it. I would imagine, and look, they wasted no time getting him back on the offseason roster and all, and under a 2-year contract just in case. So if with Johnston, he's not guaranteed any, has no fully guaranteed money in 2025. So I don't think this is a flat out competition. I think this is Cameron Johnston's job to lose, but you have a guy that you know a lot about, a guy that's used to holding for Chris Boswell, a guy that showed he could, he had developed some as a punter last season, has some experience. So if you have to go that way, then he would obviously be your choice. It'd be interesting to see if they get into a situation where something happens around the league, or both these guys punt well throughout the summer and preseason. Could we get into a situation where they try to trade one of these guys late in the off season due to injury, or somebody else around the league not being satisfied with their punter? I think that's always the case. I don't know if we'll get to a point where they hold two punters on the initial 53-man roster trying to hold out hope for a 7th round pick or what have you, but I suppose that's not totally out of the question. I think best case scenario is Cameron Johnston, gets back to form from that knee injury. Waitman, you showcase him enough during the preseason, he does a good job, and maybe the final days there prior to roster cut down, maybe you trade Waitman away for a 7th round pick.
Right. You'd hope that he'd have the best summer possible, A, to create competition and truly let best man win in training camp, and B, even if Johnston retains the job, which I think he will, then Waitman has his own potential trade value. I know they tried that with, I'm losing the name here for a second, Braden Mann a couple of years ago, and they couldn't, but they traded Brad Wing about a decade ago to the Giants for a 7th round pick. So you never know, but just hope he has a good summer, and so Pittsburgh can make the best decision possible and have as many options in a potential trade scenario too.
Absolutely.
Next on the list is offensive tackle Gareth Warren, an undrafted free agent out of Lindenwood, an FCS school. Warren was invited to Steelers rookie minicamp and impressed enough to earn a contract. So this is a guy with an uphill climb to make the 53, clearly, but offensive tackle depth, as we've talked about throughout this series, Dave, is really poor overall. You have Jones and Fautanu as your starters. Calvin Anderson, as things stand today, your number 3 swing tackle. And from there, it is really wide open. You're not even frankly sure what other names to put in the mix. There's Dylan Cook. Will Doug Nestor get tackle work? Will Nick Broker? You imagine Gareth Warren. Well, he played left tackle at Lindenwood, so he may be a 3rd-team left tackle in training camp.
Yeah, interesting to see with his length and all, and position flexibility, how he's utilized throughout this summer. As you mentioned, Lindenwood University product, signed as an undrafted free agent. Only a $2,000 signing bonus there. He played left tackle the last 2 seasons in college and left guard in 2022. Good height and exceptionally good weight, along with good length and nice hand size with him. I think he measured in at his pro day at 6'0", 5'4", which is 6'5" 328 pounds, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, 9 and 5/8 inch hands. He was an East-West Shrine Bowl week player. It is worth noting, I think, though, that he only played guard during the actual All-Star game, East-West Shrine Bowl game itself, and on both sides of the offensive line at that. He's going to definitely be an intriguing player to watch, especially if he gets the reps at tackle. He seems like he's best suited maybe to play on the left side of the offensive line and potentially at left tackle, which was his primary position in college. So we'll know right out of the chute with your reporting of, are they playing him at tackle? Are they playing him at guard? Or they play him at both? Not a lot of Lindenwood tape out there, I don't guess, to look at. But once again, at the East-West Shrine Bowl, seemed to represent himself pretty well overall. Probably going to get a pretty good amount of burn during the 3 preseason games, and if he stays healthy, I think at worst, this is a guy that you look to get to the practice squad. But we've talked quite a bit about the depth, kind of being wide open when it comes to these battles at tackle and even guard moving forward here. I'm not sure I put him on my 90-man roster right now, but things happen during training camp and the preseason. But he is a guy that once he was signed, that we said probably going to be a notable guy to watch once training camp and the preseason gets underway.
Our Tom Mead had a scouting report on Warren before the draft as part of our small school week and identified him as a guy that he really liked. And so Pittsburgh obviously saw the same, and he impressed enough in rookie minicamp to earn a contract. So there's something there they saw with Gareth Warren. Practice squad, the most likely path, but you never know, especially if Pittsburgh does not add additional offensive linemen externally from trades or waiver claims or whatever method that is, pure signings, post cut down. So we'll see. We'll be keeping an eye on Gareth Warren.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next on the list, the other Warren, a little more established. This guy will make the team, Jaylen Warren, and this is a big year for Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris is gone. Warren's now your depth chart starter. We'll talk about, I'm sure, division of labor and how many carries he'll see in the rotation between himself and rookie Caleb Johnston and even Kenneth Gainwell. But Warren, contract year for him, looking to cash in after this season, has a chance to really become, I don't want to say the guy in the backfield because there will be a rotation. Pittsburgh has gone away from the workhorse mentality, but healthy Jaylen Warren could make a lot of plays this year.
Yeah, nice offseason for Jaylen Warren, right? Got a second-round restricted tender from the team. Going to earn a little bit more than $5.3 million for the 2025 season. Where's the time gone? Undrafted free agent running back out of Oklahoma State. I think, who was the other undrafted kid out of, who was it, Duke or whatnot? That year,
Mateo Durant.
Yeah. I think I even had him kind of rated higher than Jaylen Warren initially as we went into that year's training camp. Warren, obviously, his I don't even know if Durant's even. I don't think he's even in the league anymore. And here's Warren, been a productive player for the Steelers since coming into the league. Been on the roster ever since. Once again, nice offseason for him. Najee Harris left via free agent during the offseason. This team obviously went out and drafted Caleb Johnston in the 3rd round. They signed Kenneth Gainwell to a very minimal contract during the offseason. What can you say about what Warren has done up until now? Very hard-nosed player. This guy does not take plays off. Good after first contact player, can function in the passing game as both the pass protector and a ball catcher in the offense. Has had some minor, fumble issues show up here and there, but I don't think overall too terribly concerning. Has delivered a nice amount of explosive plays overall. However, he only managed to register 4 explosive plays of 20 yards or longer during the 2024 season. Now, he did miss much time did he miss last year? Just a little bit of time with injury, didn't he? He was banged up a little bit here, but
right, early in the season.
right. Let's see. Managed 4 explosive plays. In 2023, he had 8 explosive plays, with 6 of those coming on running plays. Now, of the 4 last year, 3 of those came in the passing game. I think out of the chute, this is obviously your number one back. It will be interesting to see Caleb Johnson's development and usage as time goes on. I do expect both Caleb Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell to get some level of snaps early on in the season. How much and how long they stick with Warren as the primary guy, I think, depends totally on Jaylen Warren. I will say this. I think pass protection took a little bit of a step backward last year overall. I think overall, he is a competent pass protector, but you don't give a second round tender to a guy like this, a running back position, without expecting to lean heavily on him at the start of the season. So, is this? Are we going to be talking about 1,000 yards rushing from Jaylen Warren in 2025? Are we going to be more talking about the lines of maybe 1,000, just total 1,000 yards from scrimmage for Jaylen Warren throughout 2025? I think 1,000 rushing yards might be pushing it a little bit. I could definitely see him hitting the 1,000 yards from scrimmage if he stays healthy overall. But this is his job to lose. He's going to be the quote unquote, I guess bell cow when you look at percentages. And then once we get past the bye week and all, we'll have a good, subsection of games played and carries, and see usage in the backfield to see maybe what that looks like going forward. But you don't draft a guy like Caleb Johnson either, with what he offers the offense, to have him only play probably 3 or 4 snaps a game throughout his rookie season. So I guess the biggest question going into the season, or really as the season progresses, is how much does a guy like Caleb Johnson and even Kenneth Gainwell eat into snaps for Jaylen Warren?
I'm a little less focused on Warren's overall numbers and more focused on the quality of it. What is your rush efficiency? What is your run success rate? Your yards per carry? Your percentage of explosive plays? Some of the things you talked about. Then just the aggregate. Do you hit 1,000? Do you hit 900, 750 rushing yards? That matters to me a little bit less. Last year was tough to evaluate because you're right. He got hurt in the summer. I think he had a hamstring pulled, kind of battled through that, missed time early in the season. He never really felt fully healthy until probably after the bye or thereabouts. And that's when you kind of saw the explosiveness return in his game. And then down the stretch, the team got behind. They couldn't run the ball. The whole thing fell apart. So there's really only maybe a month of the season where I felt like you could probably properly evaluate Jaylen Warren as a runner. But now he's healthy. He is the guy. Arthur Smith really going to be able to institute his true inside, outside zone blocking scheme this season. How well will Warren fit into that? We'll see out of the gate. So for the week 1 game against the Jets, and maybe even going into week 2, what do you kind of see percentage-wise of carries split between Warren and Johnson?
Oh, probably at least 80%, I would think, for Warren.
80-20, really?
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't go that aggressive. I'd probably put it more 65-35, 60-40 in favor of Warren out of the gate.
I just think you probably want to ease the rookie into whatever time, and I'm not expecting a heavy usage of Gainwell either. And if Warren's healthy out of the chute, man, I want to use him. I trust him the most within that offense, so I expect a heavy snap count for him. Potentially even up and through the game in Ireland, week 4.
Do you think Warren still retains third down duty, even though he'll have an increased role on first and second down as a primary rusher?
I think initially he is. Once again, I think Gainwell will have his set set of circumstances that he's out there. And look, you don't want to run Warren into the ground completely. But I imagine early on it would be Warren. Warren might be your every down guy for most of the series, I think, in the first couple of games. That's kind of what I'm looking at there. But Gainwell will have his set of packages, I'm sure. And then obviously you're going to want to third down's an important down because of the pass protection. You're not going to throw Caleb Johnston out there if you can't trust him in certain situations. And, Gainwell isn't the best, most reliable pass protector either there. So I think you're going to see a lot of Warren on third down, at least early. And really, I think it's going to be interesting to watch this thing through the first 4 games of the season, through the Ireland game, get to the bye week, and then where you can really evaluate this thing and say, okay, here's what these other 2 guys can do, where we trust them at, and here's what Warren has done. Now, if Warren is absolutely, putting up 120, 130 yards a game for you, you're not going to go away from that. But if you feel like you need more explosiveness in there or whatnot, and you can trust pass protection of, let's say, a Johnston or whatnot, maybe you start mixing it up a little bit more. But I long story short, out of the chute, I think it's going to be a lot of Warren.
I think it'll be a little bit less than what you're predicting. I do think Warren will be the guy on third down, at least initially and potentially throughout the season, because as you said, rookie Caleb Johnston didn't pass protect a ton at Iowa, wasn't asked to do that, obviously, to protect Aaron Rodgers on third down, especially as we've talked about, you're facing some really creative DCs or defensive-minded schemes in Aaron Glenn and Mike Vrabel and Brian Flores, certainly in that Week 4 game in Ireland. So, yeah, I think you'll see Warren third down early, but that's probably more reason to give Caleb Johnston some additional reps on those early downs to make sure Warren is fresh throughout the game.
Yeah, but I think overall when you break it down, I mean, if you have how many touches for a running back in a game, if it goes the way you kind of want it to, 28 or so,
for
30?
the whole running back room in a game, you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, just say 30 if you're ahead and you're playing with the lead. Combined is a good round number to ascribe.
All right. What's 80% of 30?
Oh, all this math on Mondays, Dave. What are you doing to
What's
me?
that, 24? About 24?
24.
And then that leaves about 6 for Johnston and Gainwell. That sounds about right?
Nah, I think Johnston's going to get involved more. They like this guy, third round. He's going to be the runner. I think I don't know exactly how I would distribute it. I mean, would Warren get 18 and Johnston 8 and Gainwell a couple? I'm not sure, but I think 80% is too high.
All right. We'll definitely see. We're splitting hairs there, but definitely he's going to be your number one guy coming out of the preseason.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Predict a number of receptions, at least in the order of who will catch the most to fewest passes out of Pittsburgh's backfield this year. So Warren, Johnston, and Gainwell. Give me the order.
Oh, that's a fun one. Let me look back to last year as a cheat sheet here. Warren had 38 for 310. I could see him really about, let's see, Najee had, I expect him, I think, to exceed that number, probably in the 40s somewhere in there if he stays healthy, because he did miss a little bit of time. You don't have Najee Harris there. I understand you have Gainwell there, but and then obviously Caleb and all. I'm going to say Warren's in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s as far as receptions go.
Okay, but give me the order in terms of, I don't need the numbers, but who's going to be first, who's going to be second, who's going to be third. I agree Warren's going to be first. I think it's more interesting who's 2 and who's 3.
I would imagine, you know what, I'm going to go Caleb number 2. I think they want to, I think they want to utilize some of that. And I understand Gainwell was brought in because of mostly of that skill set, what he does open in space. But how many times are you actually going to do that? Get the ball out him into space a game. Let's say you even did it 2 times a game, which I think is stretching it. That's 34. I can't see, barring injury, Gainwell hitting the 30s. I could, however, see Johnston picking up some of the leftover slack created by, say, Cordell Patterson and obviously Najee Harris. So I'm going to say at the end of the year, barring these guys stay healthy, it goes Warren, Caleb, and then Gainwell.
I'll say Warren, Gainwell, and then Johnson. Gainwell, as you said, was brought in as a receiver for his versatility, ability to be split out and make some plays as a short pass game route runner. Johnson will get some checkdowns. Rodgers will get the ball out quickly, but he is a runner. I mean, he is here to run the ball and carry it, and that is going to be his bread and butter. So I think it'll be close between Gainwell and Johnson because Johnson's going to play a whole lot more, which just naturally lends itself to more targets, more receptions, more opportunities. But I think Gainwell will beat him out.
All right.
All right. And if Warren does have a good year, does he return? What is the future of Jaylen Warren, Dave?
I mean, obviously it depends on the season and health of Caleb Johnson, but you'd have to think that this guy is going to be your future lead guy at some point here. So I imagine unless Jaylen Warren doesn't have any type of market, he's going to be gone, I think, after the season.
Is there anything he can do where he comes back? Because it still could be committee. You can sign Warren and still have Johnson and have a good committee approach.
Sure, but I think once again, if Warren stays healthy and has a really solid season, he's going to be, as far as running backs go, probably one of the more sought after guys in free agency. And I don't think the Steelers are going to want to spend a lot of money on their backfield overall. They could, obviously, but and you do have Caleb Johnson on a rookie deal. I mean, if Caleb Johnson shows you what you think he can do, then that's going to be your lead guy. And I would think you wouldn't want to spend more than, say, $2 or $3 million on more of a backup guy. So as I sit here right now, I'm not expecting Warren back, but could he return? Obviously, yes. But I think I think that's yet to be determined on the seasons both those guys have.
Sure. TBD is probably a good way to sum it up on Warren. If I had to lean right now, I would lean with you and say he's not going to return. I'm less confident than I was a year ago with Najee Harris was saying, okay, this guy, he's playing out his last year in Pittsburgh. They declined his option. He's not coming back. That ultimately proved true. I'm not as adamant about it with Warren, but as you said, they drafted Johnston. Do you pay Warren $5-7 million per year on a $15-18 million plus contract? I'm not sure if you do that, and I'll continue to tout the stat. I know you and I have talked a lot in the past about this team doesn't always pay its receiver second contracts. The last Steelers running back to receive a multi-year extension, Willie Parker in 2006, before Mike Tomlin was even the head coach of the Steelers. So doesn't mean it can't happen, just history, but running backs seem to always find a way to leave Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Next on the list is tight end Darnell Washington in his third season. Thought he had a really big step up in his run blocking last year. Got involved in the pass game early. That faded down the stretch. You have Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. Where does Washington fit in all of this, Dave?
Yeah, definitely going to be used a lot on offense because of this team liking to use 2 and 3 tight ends, we would think, and sometimes even 4 moving forward here. Thought his second season was much improved over his 2023 rookie season. 19 receptions, 200 yards, and a touchdown on 25 targets. His longest reception was 29 yards. Had just one pass for 9 yards in the playoff game. Playing time in 2024, he logged 584 regular season snaps on offense and 85 more on special teams. As expected, most of his offensive snaps came with him lined up as an inline tight end, and predominantly within personnel groups, 2 or 3 more tight ends. Overall, I thought his blocking was much better than 2024, especially in the running game. I thought he graded out overall fairly well. Could they have used him a little bit more in the passing game last year, especially all those games that Michael Pruitt was out? Yeah, he probably would have graded it out even better had he not been penalized 5 times last season. 2 of those penalties were for holding, 2 were for false starts, and 1 was for unnecessary roughness. 2 of those 5 went down as drive stallers for the Steelers. His usage on special teams was minimal, played on the kickoff and punt returns in addition to the field goal and extra point attempts. He'll obviously be on the 53-man roster once again, and his offense won't change all that much when you have Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith in there. Now, who do you trust more between Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith to be, being attached in line? Probably a flip a coin situation there. I expect Jonnu Smith to be more undetached than detached. And look, you're going to use a lot of 2 and 3 tight end personnel groupings there. Darnell's going to be attached in line more so than not overall. I don't expect. I know a lot of people were saying, get him the ball more in the offense and in the passing game. But as we went through with the exercise and the passing game stats, there's only so many balls to go around. So, am I expecting him to pass, the 19 receptions for 200 yards and let's say 25 targets that he had in 2024, in 2025? If he does, I'm not expecting it to be a huge increase over either of those numbers. I think you got this guy to help block and specifically in the running game there, occasionally get him the ball leaking out as has been the case, occasionally maybe down the seam if he gets the right coverage and nobody, you get the right matchup there. But I'm not expecting a lot of him. Look, if all this guy does is give you a solid run blocking on 550 total snaps, 600 total snaps, what more do you want out of this guy? So he'll have probably about the same usage in special teams. I'm just not expecting a lot more in the quote unquote pass production as a pass receiver goes in 2025, especially if both your top 2 tight ends stay healthy.
So what is a reasonable expectation to predict Washington's receiving stat line this year? Last year was 19 catches, 200 yards, and 1 touchdown that came against Denver. Are you predicting the same or more or less?
I mean, if he gets up in that 25 range, I think something has happened. Maybe another guy has missed time or whatnot. So I'm really expecting about a same stat line, give or take. Maybe 1 or 2 receptions either way. I would be surprised if he hit 25 receptions. Let's put it to you that way.
I think he'll be around 25. I mean, he's not going to, I don't think, fade from the offense the way that he faded from the offense the last 5 games of last season where he caught just 1 pass. So even just avoiding those really long, quiet stretches will get him probably just naturally to 25 receptions, you would think.
All right. I disagree. I'll be barring injury. I'll be surprised if he hits 25.
Are you surprised if he hits 20?
I mean, that's only 1 more than last year, so I won't be shocked if that happens.
How about touchdowns? Should they use him in the red zone more? That's kind of a common narrative with Washington. This big body, throw him some jump balls.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could definitely stand a big target like that and the reach and the catch radius. I mean, I can see him having maybe 2 more touchdowns this year.
Okay. I know Arthur Smith doesn't love the jump ball fades. He did throw one to Washington last year. They run it in camp a little bit. I'm sure they will a little bit more this year. I think those touchdowns just get distributed out in the red zone in the Arthur Smith system. So I think 1 to 2 is probably fair for Washington this year in 2025.
All right. I just want to see. I think there's still a little bit of meat left on the bone as far as the run blocking aspect goes. I did think he took a nice step forward last season, but I don't think we've seen his ceiling of that yet. If he can take that one last final step in his 3rd year as a run blocker, the Steelers offense certainly could use that in the running game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I'm sure there's still growth to be had, but I think his blocking really, really improved. His snap timing got better. His pass protection, which was a big focus and emphasis in training camp, really was an asset last year. I remember him blocking Judon in week 1, like an offensive tackle. He's built like a tackle, and he's lost some weight this year. Could he be a guy that helps you against the Myles Garrett? You got to find some answers. How do we block some of these top pass rushers, Hendrickson in Cincinnati, who burned Pittsburgh last year, assuming, of course, Hendrickson ends up playing for the Bengals at some point this year and gets that contract situation resolved. But can you get a Darnell Washington to help be that answer against some of those top pass rushers to give those young tackles some support?
Yeah. I mean, he definitely has the size to do it, and he's seen him enough over the last couple of years and all, and third year in the offense and second year in Arthur Smith's offense. This guy ought to be ready to go and take that nice little step forward in all phases of his game.
And even if
Keep the penalties down too. Let's only talk about 2 penalties after this year, not 5.
And if he does do all those things, do you think you're talking extension with Washington after this year, or do you think that's still a non-starter?
I mean, I've never said it's a non-starter. I just think it's, it'll be. I think there's a lot to be determined there. Look, Jonnu's, even though he's under contract now for 1 more year, he is over 30, right? So whether or not he returns depends a lot on how he plays in 2025. Ideally, I mean, if this guy is a great run blocker and your running game takes the step forward, why would you want to go away from a guy like that 3 years in your system, especially if he's not used, isn't showcased a lot in the passing game. And if this guy ends up being, look, there's a potential that we could be talking about Darnell Washington after the 2025 season as one of the top 2 or 3 run blocking tight ends in the NFL, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, that's plausible, right? When you talk about, you obviously got the Kittles and you've got several around the league, but they're more all around tight ends. And Kittle obviously, has his foothold as being a great blocker. But if you want to talk about true run blocking tight ends, I mean, it's plausible that after this season, Washington's easily in the top 5 and maybe even top 3 when that goes. And then why would you want to go away from that if you could re-sign the guy, for $8-9 million and re-up him for another couple of years here. So I think it's plausible, but I mean, he's got to go out there and do it on the field and show that he is the top 3 run blocking tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, I'd show it again, be consistent, make some progress. Also, make sure Arthur Smith remains in Pittsburgh through the next year's coaching cycle. I know people will probably think that's likely, but if Pittsburgh has a great year offensively, Smith got some head coach looks last year from the Bears and Jets. If he goes away, you bring in a new OC. Maybe he doesn't want to run the 13 personnel that Pittsburgh is likely to run this year, but Washington extension would come after that cycle. It would come in the summer. It's not going to be an early thing. There'll be no rush to get that done if it happens. So one step at a time. I'm excited for Washington. Want to see some growth from him in this tight end room really deliver for this offense.
Yep.
Next on the list is TJ Watt. The contract situation is taken care of. You've talked about the details there, Dave. There's not a whole lot else to discuss. Watt, I'm sure we'll get plenty of rest days and half days and, not a lot of work for him in training camp or preseason.
I wrote this up in my 90 and 30 the day that the day I don't even think it was about 35 minutes after I wrote this up that the news was announced about the extension. And thankfully our Scott Brown went in and edited out the paragraph and talked about really being signed, sealed, and delivered at that point. But it didn't change the rest of the breakdown of him in the 90 and 30. Look, 2024 obviously wasn't his best NFL season to date, but I know a lot of players in the NFL would take that. Registered 11.5 sacks to go with 61 total tackles. Had the quarterback hit, 6 forced fumbles, which you obviously like, 4 passes defense, 2 fumble recoveries in regular season play. I think the most notable thing, and we talked about this just recently after he signed the contract and all, was down the stretch, and specifically in the team's final 3 regular season games and the lone playoff game that Watt registered just 7 total tackles in those 4 games, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defense, and against Baltimore in the playoffs, he was completely kept off the stat sheet. Obviously, a rarity for him throughout his NFL career. You go back to the Week 15 game against the Eagles, he had what would be his 2 final sacks of the season, 2 quarterback hits, final 2 quarterback hits of the 2024 season. He did sustain that lower left ankle injury during that game, and perhaps that, we're guessing maybe that played a part in how he performed the remainder of the season. 938 total snaps on defense and 38 more on special teams. As usual, mostly played on the left side of the defense. Played 63 of the possible 74 snaps on defense in that playoff game. Overall, the playing time in the final 3 regular season games was shortened just a bit compared to the rest of the year, and you have to wonder if the ankle injury was probably the reason for that. We've talked about his new deal already. There's nothing really to add there. Went outside of the 3 extra years versus 4 extra years. That's the only thing really different that other than expectations there. Look, you're expecting high double-digit sacks at the very least from him, several forced turnovers to go along with multiple other big plays in the backfield. He'll be expected to be a game wrecker once again, and for a full season. It sounds like we could see him play a little bit more on the right side in 2025, as that seemed to be his overall thoughts and the message that he had after this last season ended. Watt's success in 2025 will obviously be partly decided on how healthy he can remain throughout 17-game schedule. He's been nicked up quite a bit in the past several seasons, even though he's played in all 17 regular season games both times. This team drafted Jack Sawyer this year. You would think he's going to get some playing time. I think we said the other day it'd be kind of wise, maybe if you can, to get T.J. Watt off the field. Even though it's going to be like pulling teeth. I think expectations are for him to be in the running for the Defensive Player of the Year award. I'll be disappointed if he's not. Everybody should be disappointed if he's not. Anything short of what would be considered an all-pro type season for him, on the heels of him signing a lucrative contract extension. I think that's the expectation. Yeah, he's on the other side of 30 and all, but when healthy, this guy can take over games and can change games. TJ Watt can single-handedly win you games in 2025. I expect that to be the case, and I just think that down the stretch, you want a healthy Watt, and you don't want what you saw in the last 3 regular season games and the final and the playoff game last year. He was clicking right along through that game in Philadelphia. If he gets 4, 5, 6 more sacks the rest of the way, his 2024 season looks a lot better there. But that's not the way he went. There's going to be the concerns about him being nicked up and all, and I get that. I think by taking away a few snaps from him throughout the season, hopefully will help him, and I'll be interested to see how much he gets on the right side with him flipping sides with, say, Alex Highsmith, or whenever Herbig comes in the game. Jack Sawyer's been predominantly a left side outside linebacker throughout his college career at Ohio State, so you probably leave that alone as much as possible, and then you just you have fun with your other 3 guys in Herbig, Highsmith, and Watt with moving those guys around. So long story short, I'm expecting Watt to make a run at Defensive Player of the Year again.
I still don't think the answer for Watt is to move him around a whole lot. Maybe a little, and I'm sure they will, but to me the answer is just getting back to playing good run defense, some other schematic changes, more stunts, more blitzes, just things that can't allow offensive pass protection schemes to so freely double and triple and chip the heck out of TJ Watt to kind of force more one-on-one blocking. But that's a separate topic, I guess. I know I've asked a lot of questions about stat predictions and numbers and projections, but to do it one more time with Watt this year, what number of sacks are you looking for? 11.5 last year, his lowest and fewest since his rookie season. He's gone as high as 22.5 sacks. What are you looking for from Watt this year?
At a minimum, and this is low end, 16. I envision it being more like 18 and a half.
I think if he can get near 20 is what you're shooting for with TJ Watt. I agree. And they need it. They need him to be the alpha and the guy and that force multiplier that frees up everybody else, and he'll continue to play really good run defense, but the sack production has to be there. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, need that. Need those takeaways, those forced fumbles. Need those tackles in the backfield. Those game changing. Look, we look at this guy, and he's going to be judged by sacks, right? But TJ Watt obviously can provide more for you than just that. If he has 17, 18 sacks and he's still keeping up with these game-changing type plays of the forced fumbles and the tackles in the backfield and those kind of things, that you think of this guy now and the money he's making, everybody's thinking, he ought to have 20 sacks. Yeah, he ought to push for the sack record. I think that's a little strong right now. But look, the sacks were down for this defense last year. They need to get back to 50 or more overall. I think by him playing the type of game that he can play and doing so for a 17-game season can play obviously a big part in that. And if he's not getting the sacks, hopefully those sacks get distributed across the rest of the defense there. So as I said, I think 16 would be low side for him. And I'm thinking more along the line of 18 or 18 and a half. And I'd be fine with that as long as these other plays are happening.
Sure, but for training camp, he'll be out there, he'll be practicing, and that's all good news. No drama, no storyline, but he'll have a pretty easy training camp, plenty of time off to get his body right, stay fresh, nothing to prove, get young guys time, Herbig, Moon, Sawyer, etc. So Watt should be, doing a lot of watching this summer.
I don't even know if you get him out there during the preseason, I might just keep the bubble wrap on him.
Did he play in the preseason last year? Why am I thinking he didn't? I could be totally wrong on that. We'll look it up here right now and probably prove me wrong, but I'm not even sure what action he got last year. If it was little, if he did play in that tune-up game against, I don't know if that was Detroit or the game before.
Let's see, preseason last year, no snaps.
No, okay. My instinct was correct. Yeah, no snaps, and I'm okay with that repeats in 2025.
All right.
I prefer it probably, just to make sure he's ready to go for week one. Next on the list, an outside linebacker who will play a lot this preseason, Julius Welschof, the team's international exemption. So the reason why Pittsburgh has 91 players on their roster is because of Welschof. He does not count against the roster as that lone international exemption each team can get, and so he will try to compete for a spot. He's with a team last season, actually made a couple plays in the preseason, had I think 3.5 sacks, not the most high quality sacks, but still plays nonetheless, and so he got hurt, unfortunately, in that preseason finale against Detroit late in the game, freak knee injury, came back, I think, to the team late in the season, I think is a timeline on that. You can fill me in, Dave, and we'll try to compete for a spot this time around.
Yeah, look, you just automatically, because he's an international player, sort of discard him to the side, but I thought he showed some interesting things in those 3 preseason games that he played in last year. And unfortunately, he had the knee injury in the finale, as you stated, went to injured reserve. Then they waived him with a injury settlement. After he recovered, he came back to the practice squad in November. And then later in the season, they shifted his status back to international practice squad player. Look, he, as you stated, he ended up 3.5, I think, sacks during the preseason, and only Nick Herbig had more than him. This is a guy that should get a lot of burn throughout the preseason. Julius Welschof could very well end the preseason as the NFL leader in sacks. How's that for you?
There's a hot take on a Monday.
Now look, what does that mean in the grand? We saw what Tuzar Skipper, do those kind. Just keep an eye on this kid during the preseason. I don't think he's obviously going to make the 53-man roster with the international, being the international pathway program player and all. And look, if he stays healthy, he should be on the practice squad with that designation. I think they kind of changed up the rules a little bit, that if you needed to up to, let's see, what is it? 3 times, I think, a guy like that can be elevated should you need him. I think a lot would have to happen throughout the season injury-wise to get him to that point, but I don't think it's unthinkable if something did happen that this is a guy that you elevate maybe once for injury reasons or whatnot. But from where I sit right now, he's going to be a fun guy to watch during the preseason. After that, we're probably not going to hear much from him. After that, be a practice squad player. Hopefully he doesn't have to get elevated overall, and then maybe the Steelers take a good look at him and say, hey, there's something here. This guy could maybe be a backup on this team moving forward here. So the preseason is going to be the time to keep an eye out on Julius Welschof.
I'm going to get into the most weedy, nerdy, boring, read a phone book conversation here. Did they change the rules where you can elevate IPP players? I didn't think you could.
I thought I read something here. Per NFL rules, the Steelers will be able to elevate Welschof to their game day inactive roster for a maximum of 3 times throughout the 2025 season, even if he's assigned to the team's international player on the practice squad.
Okay, then they did change that because I know last year the rule was he would have to shed that IPP exemption label to be elevated and get on the 53 in any capacity. So that's a benefit for a guy like him. So you can keep him as a 17th exemption player on the practice squad and still treat him like anybody else, which is a benefit for him and all international players like that. I thought his run defense was really impressive in training camp. I know he got the sacks last year, but I thought in camp and throughout the preseason, played really steady, sturdy run defense. He's at the edge. He's big. He's tall. He's unusually tall. He's 6'6". He's kind of a weird body type for the position, but he moves pretty well overall. And so I think his run defense was what really stood out to me the most overall last summer. The thing for him is special teams. That's true for anybody in his shoes, but he Michigan, he was running down kicks. He was one of their teamers. And so he's got a background there. I don't know how much he did that last year. I'm sure some, but this is a guy that has a background, did it in college, and will have to do it again in Pittsburgh.
He played 122 snaps on defense last year during the preseason and 18 more on special teams in 3 games.
Yeah, I want to see special teams bump up. I know those guys rotate, so you're not going to play like 70 snaps on special teams because so many guys get filtered in, but that could be his path because he's done it before.
Right.
Next on the list, let's go to undrafted free agent Aiden Williams from D2 Minnesota Duluth, a guy that went to the Shrine game. I'm sure caught Pittsburgh's attention, played tackle, will probably play guard. We'll get eyes on that come Thursday to see where everyone's lining up, but lack of length will likely kick him inside.
Yeah, I think when going back over him and writing him up, signed this year as an undrafted free agent out of Minnesota Duluth, 40 games in college that spanned 4 seasons, was used as a tight end. Initially, when he got into college, the team asked him to gain some weight, switch over to playing on the offensive line. He mostly played at left tackle in college once he was moved to the offensive line. Did see some limited playing time at guard as well. Was an East-West Shrine Bowl guy this past offseason. Measured in at 6'05", 5'8", 314, 32 and a quarter inch arms though, 9 3/8 hands. Was asked to mainly flip between left and right guard while in Texas for the East-West Shrine Bowl. There was a interview with Draft Network, I believe, during the pre-draft process, and Aiden Williams indicated that even he sees himself as an interior offensive lineman at the NFL level. Also said in that interview that he's learning the center position more this offseason so that he can potentially play each of the 5 positions on the offensive line if ever asked to. So you got a small school prospect here, developing offensive lineman still. We can probably expect him to open up training camp as a guard, I would think, especially with his lack of arm length. Here's the thing I think to be interested to kind of monitor with him. We do this seemingly every year with one of these guys, and it never comes to fruition much. But will they give him any time at center? Maybe the 3rd center or something, 4th center. I don't know. But to me, doesn't really have a chance to make the 53-man roster if he's even able to stay under contract throughout the preseason. I think the best chance with him is him, showing enough and staying healthy that he winds up on the practice squad. And I think that'd be a huge accomplishment if he achieves that come week 1.
It would. And that's where I was going to go to, Dave. I know we had this discussion a couple episodes ago trying to map out the 1st, 2nd, 3rd team offensive lines. Who's your 3rd team center right now? We know 1st team's Frazier, 2nd team's McCollum. Who's running 3rd team?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about Nestor. I think's got a little bit of
does he? He's not played center, I don't think, and he's pretty tall.
Yeah, but I think he have just a cup of coffee there,
He might. I don't recall anything, but there's no clear name. Broker. No. Could Spencer Anderson get some work there? Probably not out of the gate. Maybe at some point in camp. It's one of those questions I'll be to go back to our very nerdy conversation, something I'll be watching for come Thursday.
Yeah, and once again, this is a guy that indicated that he's doing some work, I guess, at center this offseason, and also, look, you got Ryan McCollum, going to get plenty of his work as a backup, but I think it will be interesting when that third team goes in there. Who is that guy?
Now, those comments that Williams made, that was pre-draft, right?
Right.
Right. So those guys always work out. Center, guard, never know what a team's going to see in you. Will they draft you or sign you to play guard or play center? So I don't know if he was doing that just as a general, let's do everything, because you never know what a team could ask, more so than, a true move to center. But maybe I think it's pretty athletic. I think his testing was solid. So there's something there. And he's an Alaskan man. He's from Alaska, from Minnesota to Duluth to Pittsburgh. So a crazy journey for Aiden Williams.
All right. So my main takeaway here is we should see him at guard. Probably third team, I would guess third or 14 guard, throughout the, training camp and the preseason. I think the big, don't be shocked if you report him getting snaps at center.
Yeah, we'll go through the lines, and there's really only 3 teams of offensive linemen for a second. Third team is generally how it goes, and so it could be third team left guard, but I'll be interested in who's getting those center snaps. Let's go from one UDFA to another, and wide receiver Keshan Williams out of Indiana. I think our Josh Carney profiled him and liked this tape. So what's the skinny on Keshan Williams?
Yeah, Indiana by way of Wake Forest. Last season caught 39 passes for 448 yards and 5 touchdowns, rushed twice for another 27 over his 4 seasons at Wake Forest, had a little over 107 receptions for nearly 1,400 yards and 5 touchdowns. Just 16, track this down. 16 of his receptions in college went for 25 or more yards throughout his college career, was mainly used as a slot wide receiver. He did, however, log a fairly decent amount of share of snaps lined out wide. He did return 34 kickoffs during his college career for 679 yards, an average of 20 per return. Also, just 4 punt returns over 5 seasons. Utilized some on the kickoff and punt coverage teams throughout his college career as well. Pro day, 5 foot. Here's the kicker: 5'9", 188 pounds. 30-inch arms, nice size hands, 9 3/4-inch hands. 40-yard dash, 4.54 seconds, 6 reps on the bench. Nice vertical, jumped out of the building at 39 inches. Nice broad jump, short shuttle and 3-cone were nice. The Steelers obviously have a full wide receiver depth chart at this point. Several of those obviously locks to make the roster. In short, it's hard seeing Williams competing for anything more than a practice squad spot out of training camp. As far as the rest of the summer goes, I would think that he'd be used mainly as a slot wide receiver. Could get a chance maybe to return a kickoff or 3 during the preseason. Overall, we're talking about a generally undersized wide receiver that lacks long speed. He's going to have to have a really impressive summer in order to stay in Pittsburgh. Once again, I think you're talking about a practice squad candidate that we'll be watching throughout the summer and the preseason.
Agree. Tough path to make it. Special teams could be his ticket to make some plays. He did do some kick returns in college, wasn't especially prolific at them, but I assume he'll be in the lines, maybe get some work in second half of preseason games. But competing with Rock Taylor, the other receivers, the vets on the roster, even guys outside the bubble like Scotty Miller that are probably ahead of him. You never know. Guys can surprise, but tough path for Keshan Williams.
Sure is.
Next on the list is Payton Wilson, year 2 for him. And I'm pretty bullish on Payton Wilson, Dave. I'm expecting big things from him in his sophomore NFL season.
Boy, you want to talk about a guy that many thought was a first-round talent that dropped to the Steelers in the draft due to people being concerned about the knee injury history and all like that. Definitely put himself on the map. I mean, what more do you want out of a rookie? Third round pick inside linebacker on his team? Logged 492 snaps on defense, 301 more on special teams. Played an additional 27 snaps on defense in the playoff game, 16 more on special teams against the Ravens in that game. He missed 9 tackles on the season, according to PFF. They also had Wilson down for allowing 36 receptions. Now these are, you go by the PFF charting. Sometimes it's just the nearest guy, zone and stuff like that.
Which I hate. It's just a horrible system.
Mostly aligned inside the box on defense, did play almost 35 snaps aligned in the slot. What can you say about the interception down the sideline in that game against the Ravens? Graded out really well. Run game was 62. Coverage grade was 76.4. I thought he looked really good in a Steeler uniform as a rookie, and especially for a player selected in the third round. As far as with Wilson playing as much as he did in 2024, there's now a good chance he logs even a little bit more time on defense in 2025, especially after Landon Roberts left. This team did, however, sign Malik Harrison. That's going to obviously absorb some of that Landon Roberts role from last season. Even so, Wilson should still have a fairly defined role in defense in 2025. Patrick Queen's probably likely going to be your one and only inside linebacker out there in sub package situations. I think the biggest thing that we need to see out of Payton Wilson in 2025 is getting off blocks at the second level. That's really the biggest weakness of his during his rookie season. With this being his second season, should be even more comfortable in the defense. Thus should play even faster. Very smart player. Showed he could create splash plays with the 4 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles. 6 of his 78 tackles came on special teams last year, so he's going to have a role in that as well too. Expect a few more splash plays on defense. I think in his second NFL season, playing more on a lot on special teams once again. Certainly won't be an every down defensive player. I'm looking at about 600 total defensive snaps, I think, on him is fair in his second season. Obviously could log more should Harrison or Patrick Queen miss any time due to injuries. But, man, based on everything we saw out of him in 2024, it's hard to not get excited about what kind of step he might take in 2025. Fun player to watch last season, and that should be the case once again this season.
I agree. There's a lot to build on. The athletic profile, as you hinted at, this was a first-round talent. He didn't fall to the third round because of lack of talent. It was just the injury concern, the long-term scope of his knees, of his shoulders, off the boards of many teams per the reporting at the time. Clearly, Pittsburgh felt comfortable enough to take the chance on him, and so far have reaped the benefits of it. He has not missed action in several seasons, right? It was a lot of early stuff at NC State. Those last 2 years with the Wolfpack, he was healthy. He was healthy last season with Pittsburgh. So I did that film room breakdown on him, as you said, defeating blocks, block shedding, block deconstruction, being a little more downhill, a little more trusted, see it, attack. He was a little hesitant in the run game, I thought, last season. A lack of length has always been one of his drawbacks in terms of being able to work off of blocks, but hopefully a stronger defensive line will keep run and chase guys like Patrick Queen and like Payton Wilson free to just go out there and be athletic and make plays. So I'm excited about this guy.
Yeah, got a full season now, being more of an in-the-box guy as opposed because they moved him around in that North Carolina defense out to the edge and all like that. So he's got nearly a full NFL season now of viewing the game more inside the box. So I think that'll help him as well too. Talented guy, and once again, I mean he had 78 total tackles, and we said what, 6 of those, or how many? I forget how many of those came on special team. Not many of them, but I mean he could very easily exceed 78 total tackles in his second NFL season.
And he did that on less than half the snaps last year. Remember, he was just a nickel guy, and even then, Landon Roberts was eating into his nickel reps throughout last season because Roberts played the run so well. And so the big thing for Wilson is, can he work in 3-4 packages too? Can he get to a point where his run defense is good and trusted enough to do that? Or will Pittsburgh continue to run a 3-man band of Malik Harrison and Wilson and Queen, where Harrison is your base guy next to Queen? Wilson and Queen are a nickel, maybe some rotation of Harrison and Wilson splitting time, and then Queen, your dime linebacker in those 6 DB packages. So can Wilson be able to absorb more plays and just make it a 2-man show between Wilson and Queen? I think that's ideal, but Wilson has to show it. But at training camp, he'll be the first guy down those stairs. He's always there, half hour, 45 minutes before practice kicks off, and I imagine that will continue in 2025.
Agreed. Should be a fun player to talk about throughout the season.
Roman Wilson, talk about big year twos for players named Wilson, and Roman certainly feeling some of the pressure there after a lost rookie season. Had the injury the first day in pads last year, missed the summer, came back, played 5 snaps against the Raiders, didn't catch a pass, gets hurt right after that, never returns to game action. I know Calvin Austin been declared by the team, by Elise Akazani, as the number 2 receiver. Wilson will have an opportunity and has to take advantage.
Let us talk about Roman Wilson participating in every every training camp practice and every preseason game. This
Amen.
year. That's first and foremost. And let's have you end up talking about, hey, Roman Wilson really showing why he was a 3rd round pick throughout training camp and all. Obviously, first and foremost, got to stay healthy overall. Now, moving forward into the season, we obviously didn't learn much of anything about him in the 5 offensive snaps that he played last season there. View him more obviously. He played obviously in the slot and a little bit wide, lined up outside at Michigan. I foresee more slot type stuff. I think one of the big questions still that needs to be answered about him is any time he's pressed overall. Got a lot of free releases in college. He did have some good snaps occasionally when lined up wide against some good talent. I think the Georgia game comes to mind overall, but we got to see if this guy can get off of press at some point. And if not, he's going to really pigeonhole himself as a slot guy versus off coverage. I don't have any concerns about him functioning as a slot guy against off coverage. He showed that enough during his college career. Now he's got to do this at the NFL level. Got to stay healthy first and foremost. As far as what I'm expecting for him, it's hard to expect him to catch more than 30 passes, I think, especially when you get into these breakdowns of the passing game and ball distribution in the passing game and all. I'll be a bit surprised if he has more than 30 catches in his second NFL season. You're going to obviously run a lot of 2-3 tight end groupings. There's going to, DK Metcalf's going to be on the field for a lot of those. Obviously, Calvin Austin going to be on the field. A lot of them, I suppose when you get into 11 personnel, Roman Wilson will more come into play in those situations. Overall, that'll probably be the bulk of his snaps that we're talking about. And can they get him the ball in those situations?
It's really a clean slate for me in year 2 with Roman Wilson. I thought he flashed a little bit in the 4 padless practices in camp last year when I got eyes on him before his injury, but it's a padless situation. It's still basically glorified OTAs, not going to learn a whole lot there. So what's his play strength like? Can he get off press coverage? I just think overall, what's his relationship like with Aaron Rodgers? So young receivers typically have not put up big numbers around a guy like him. Is he detailed in? Is he dialed in? Does he know every check and sight adjustment and hand signal? That's going to be so critical to earning Rodgers' trust, and that earns the coaching staff's trust and gets you more playing time. So it's a clean slate, but a big year for Roman Wilson.
I've got him down for around a little shy of 400 offensive snaps.
Yeah, it's hard to really, peg exactly what number that'll be. That's out of 1,000. I assume you're kind of working on just blanket numbers, so 40%. That sounds reasonable. Injuries can change so much. He'll get, even if he's not the de facto number 2 receiver, which he probably won't be, he'll still get rotated in and get some chances. But, how many targets are going to be there for this guy? You got DK Metcalf, you got a heavy run game, of course, you got the tight ends, you have Calvin Austin. We're talking at a 500 pass attempts is kind of the number we put Rodgers at last episode. How many of those are truly going to go to your number 3 receiver in an Arthur Smith system?
Yeah, it's hard to carve out a lot of targets for him barring injury, and that's why I said I'd be surprised if he breaks the 20 reception mark.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what number I'll put him at. I know one injury can change so much. Calvin Austin really benefited production-wise whenever Pickens got hurt last year. That's whenever his numbers spiked. Had that not happened, those numbers would have been, a lot less than what they were. So, I don't know. I'll make my prediction, before the season begins, but It's more about the quality of the place and Roman Wilson because the quantity just probably won't naturally be there. So can he just capitalize, make some splash, move the chains, do that kind of stuff?
Right. Look like a third round pick,
Yeah, and just be healthy and give us something to evaluate is going to be key for him. Let's go to Robert Woods, fellow receiver on the other side of the spectrum, a veteran guy, a blocker type. He's already proven a lot. Still has to earn his spot, obviously, on the team, but he's a guy that's been there, done that, and really playing the role. Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, but hopefully on far fewer snaps.
Yeah, 1 year, $2 million contract in late April that included a $745,000 signing bonus, the only fully guaranteed money in the deal. Originally selected by the Bills in the second round way back in 2013 out of USC. Boy, he's played a lot in the NFL to date. Been a member with the Rams, Titans, Texans, and obviously the Bills. 683 career receptions, 38 touchdowns. Has a little bit of NFL history as a returner, has returned 34 punts for 287 yards to date and 7 kickoffs for another 153 yards. Last season as a member of the Texans, he caught just 20 passes for 203 yards on 30 total targets. Returned 15 punts last season, 5 kickoffs, played 361 offensive snaps. And 71 more on special teams last season. Somewhat position flexible receiver overall. Turned 33 in April. Does Woods have one more half decent season in him that the Steelers can utilize? We'll find out more about that when the team gets into training camp and the 3 preseason games. As we sit here right now, it's easy to imagine Woods being on the 53-man roster. Even so, as I put in my 90 and 30, I'm not sure I would consider him a stone-cold lead type lock, depending on how the rest of this wide receiver group pans out here, and maybe no injuries with this group. Robert Woods, unless you're going to use him as a returner, is not going to give you any special teams value. Low salary makes him easy to cut. In closing, I think Bobby Trees is what he is at this point. 2025 very well could be his final NFL season, and that assumes he winds up making the Steelers 53-man roster. Logic right now tells you he will, but don't be shocked if he doesn't. Also, don't be shocked if he winds up catching fewer than 20 passes during the 2025 season, if indeed he is on this 53-man roster. I think this is veteran insurance overall. You hope that Roman Wilson, who we just talked about, comes on. You hope the rest of your receiving staff stays healthy. You're kind of anticipating Ben Skronik making this team as a special teamer. What's going to happen to Scotty Miller? Yada, yada. So I think I have him penciled in on my 53-man roster right now, but it won't take a lot for me to have him outside the bubble.
And even if he does make the team as a number 4 receiver, we talked about what the production will or won't be with Roman Wilson. What's it going to be for a guy behind him in Robert Woods? But probably a good thing if he's catching 15 or so passes, blocking, rotating occasionally. That's going to be his role if he does have one on this team. So veteran presence, but a good guy to have in the locker room, run blocker, the demeanor that Arthur Smith wants out of his guys that play hard and get those RBIs, those blocks downfield. Roberts can do that, or Woods can do that.
Yeah, it's probably him and Scotty Miller going after each other, right?
Yeah, I would say so because Skronik's different with the special teams value, and in that mono-y-mono battle, then I would give Woods the edge. It would also be where if a Rock Taylor emerges or Keshan Williams, or if they were to add a Gabe Davis, those are things that could also really squeeze Woods' roster spot. Next on the list is Tucker Addington, and appropriately enough, he's being added to the list here because I think he was signed after, Dave, you started this series as a second long snapper. Pittsburgh had explored a long snapper throughout the offseason. They brought in guys for rookie minicamp. Addington was not one of them. He's been in for workouts in years past, but he was signed, was that, I guess, last month they would be, and so he will try to push Christian Kuntz.
Yeah, and I think the key point here is this team brought in, especially I think one workout period. What did they bring in? 3 or 4 long snappers during that one report. The writing was on the wall that they were looking for somebody to bring in on the 91-man roster for training camp here. And Addington was released by, who was it? The Texans, I think.
Sounds right.
Back earlier in the month, and the Steelers jumped on that because he does have some experience long snapping in NFL games. Former undrafted free agent out of Sam Houston State, bounced around the NFL on some rosters. Cowboys, I think, 6 other NFL teams, has appeared in 10 NFL games to date. Let's see, in 2024, he appeared in 4 games in total, 3 with the Dolphins, 1 with the Patriots, has 1 career tackle on Smith. Look, this guy is just a guy in there to give Christian Kuntz a couple practices off, just let Christian Kuntz know that somebody else is there looking over his shoulder. I expect Christian Kuntz to win this job, but at least you have a guy in camp that, God forbid something happens, got some NFL experience.
Right. So it's still uphill battle, but interesting. Pittsburgh thought enough to bring in a second long snapper because they did not have one last year. I'm not sure if they had one the year before. It was just Christian Kuntz. So a dedicated second snapper is interesting. We'll see. I guess we'll just see how those guys do.
Yeah, you could get late into the preseason here and need a roster spot to get you to the final game or yada yada, and he might not even make it through the whole preseason. But at least you have a guy in camp initially that's got some experience here should something happen to Christian Kuntz.
For the final 3, these were other additions throughout the season, off season. And we already talked about these guys so much, so I'm going to lump them together. Jaylen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, part of the Minka Fitzpatrick deal on June 30th. We discussed their roles so much. Ramsey, can he do everything? How does he fit into the secondary? How do they use him? How do they distribute snaps for the top 3 corners? Jonnu Smith, kind of same thing. 3 tight ends there. Smith is versatile. The relationship with Arthur Smith. So those guys have been talked about a whole lot. Not much else to add.
Yeah, there's not a lot to add here that we haven't already covered since the trade and all. Expect Jaylen obviously to play a lot in the defense, probably as a base corner opposite Joey Porter. You get in the nickel situations, Darius Slade probably come in on the outside. Ramsey shifts to the inside. I think the biggest thing to watch is, Ramsey's talked about in the past about, not being opposed to moving to free safety more at some point. I don't envision to see that a lot, but could you have some fun with some things with in dime and nickel packages where you have some rotation where Ramsey maybe potentially ends up in tied to the post, if you will. Look, you don't go out and pay this guy $19.5 million in cash in 2025 for him not to get a lot of playing time. I think globally right now, people do not consider him as a top 5 cornerback in the league, probably just somewhere in the 5 to 10 range within there. This guy can you still better think twice when you throw his direction. You still better think twice when you run his direction. I mean, this is a big boy still. Turns 31 in October. I think he probably potentially has at least two good seasons remaining in him. The Steelers have a lot of money invested in their defense once again. Ramsey's a big part of that spending this year. Team has rebuilt their secondary this offseason. Ramsey needs to stay healthy and do his part along with Porter, Slay, the rest of the defensive backs in here. I think should he play, I think the Steelers hope and think he'll play in 2025 like a Pro Bowl, all-pro type player or damn near close to it. That's what they're betting on. That's why you go out there and trade away a guy like Minka Fitzpatrick as part of this deal to get a guy with the experience and the resume that Ramsey has. And they expect him to earn every bit of that $19.5 million in cash when it comes to him. Jonnu Smith, I expect him to be detached more than attached, but you can move this guy around in all facets of the offense, out wide in the slot, gives you a real chess piece. Obviously has the history with Arthur Smith in Tennessee and the one season in Atlanta. If anybody knows how to use Jonnu Smith, it's Arthur Smith. here. So gave him the extension after trading for him. I don't know if you want to see him a lot attached to the line of scrimmage as a blocker. This guy can deliver explosive plays on offense. You better be careful. What I like to see is, and you get into some 13 personnel situations here, we have Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington as your three tight ends on the field. Teams come out with, say, a bigger personnel type grouping, base, so to speak, and all like that, thinking that you're going to try to run out of that. How can you, can you pre-snap and flex Jonnu out? Freiermuth out, what have you, and kind of take advantage of this stuff because you've got talented tight ends in Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. So gives you a mismatch component to this thing, because when we're talking about a tight end / wide receiver here, more so than you're talking about a tight end / fullback type player here. So is he going to reach the receiving stat level that he did last year in Miami? I doubt it. It's going to be interesting to see the split. Can you get 50 passes to Freiermuth and 50 to Jonnu Smith in the passing game? I think that's plausible overall. But I mean, once again, you got a guy that Arthur Smith, it's now Arthur Smith's duty to figure out how to best utilize him in this offense as part of 2 and 3 tight end personnel groupings.
Dave, the theme of the offseason for Pittsburgh was physical playmakers on both sides of the ball, and these guys fit that to a T. Ramsey, physical playmaker, his run defense, his blitzing ability, of course, his playmaking and coverage ability. Jonnu Smith, his, big playability. He has, 6 receptions of 40-plus yards, I think, in his career. That's third, I believe, among tight ends, or second among tight ends over that span. He has the most broken tackles by tight end over the last 3 years, more than Kelsey, more than Kittle. And so these are yak threats on the offensive side of the football. With Jonnu Smith, you had Caleb Johnston, you had DK Metcalf, of course. Defensively, Derek Carman, Jaylen Ramsey, the overall dedication to improving the front seven in the draft. That was the theme of the offseason, with all the change, all the new, all the at times, I don't want to say chaos, but just the nonstop news cycle. The overall bucket you can put a lot of these additions into are physical playmakers, and that is Jaylen Ramsey, and that is Jonnu Smith.
I think I have down here for him, he has averaged 4 explosive plays and 3.5 touchdowns a season since entering the NFL. So that should probably be about his expectations when it comes to the 2025 season in Pittsburgh. Could he exceed the 4 explosive plays by 1 or 2? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm looking for him to deliver at least 4 explosive plays and, 3 to 4 touchdowns maybe this year for the Steelers on offense.
Yeah. If he can do more, great. But that's probably a good benchmark for him in terms of expectations in Pittsburgh.
All right.
Last on the list is a guy who is technically not on the 91-man roster, but on the team, Donald Parham Jr. tore his Achilles during OTAs. Unfortunate for him, so he was placed on injured reserve. It's a guy that was interesting, had size, had some production with the Chargers, spent last year on the Broncos practice squad, but unfortunately will not contribute in 2025.
Yeah, sort of Jonnu Smith light, right?
Mm-hmm.
To some degree there. This was the easiest player in the 90 and 30 to write up because of looking for his outlook for 2025. There is no outlook. He is on IR with the Achilles injury. I would imagine it's serious enough that he's going to stay on IR all season, not be waived with any type of injury settlement. I've been wrong on that before, but we'll see. Assuming he makes it to week 1, which I don't see any reason why he wouldn't on IR. He will go on a split salary on IR at $540,000. He'll probably remain there the rest of the season, and then after his contract expires in March, we'll see what happens. That might be it. His time in Pittsburgh probably not very good, not going to be notable overall, assuming he lasts all season on IR.
Yeah, not much else to note there, but hopefully he has a speedy recovery.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, that concludes the 90 and 30 series. So congrats on another season of previewing this team before training camp.
Yeah, I always enjoy doing this because I learned a little bit more, especially about the back end undrafted futures type players throughout this thing. You get into a situation where, okay, well, that guy's got more of a chance maybe to make the practice squad than this guy. You got a couple of guys that could maybe push for a roster spot and all. I think overall, globally, it's not hard to narrow down. I don't know, 44, 45, 46 guys that you'd consider locks on this roster right now, leaving, a good 6, 7, 8. I think the biggest question heading into training camp, and I suppose that's kind of where we're going at next in our conversation here of kind of looking ahead to training camp getting underway. The depth of the offensive line, obviously a big question here. Will this team add a free safety? What's Juan Thornhill's role in this defense? That's something to look forward to. What's going to happen at maybe some of this slot cornerback type situation? The Beanie Bishops of the world. How does he figure into this? Cole Holcomb. What's Cole Holcomb's future? How does he look healthy? PUP, every over the years I've gone through, I've gone from this is definitely the way the PUP is going to look, as to what surprises might we get. I think at its core right now, you think this team's going to have a clean PUP, Alex. And then I've learned, there's always one or two for whatever reason. So that'll be something that we watch at the start of training camp. How many of these guys, if any, start off on PUP? Obviously we're going to talk about these draft picks a lot, how they look at the start of camp. The return of Roman Wilson will get a lot of our attention throughout training camp. Can any of these guys push for these gunner spots that seem to belong to Skronik and Pierre? What's going to happen with Bobby Woods? We just talked about. Can any of these young receivers make Robert Woods expendable? Who's your buddy Thomas Jones? Fullback. I think you have him on your initial 53-man roster. And Connor Hayward's not on your initial 53-man roster. How will Connor Hayward's training camp and preseason play out? Going through the list here, how about the defensive line? Some of the battles that we have going on with beyond your starters there. I think there's a lot of work to be done to kind of figure out who those 6, maybe even 7 will be. Who's the backup? Along with Spencer Anderson, are you keeping an extra guard? Are you keeping an extra tackle along with Can anybody upset? Maybe not necessarily an upset, but can anybody overtake Calvin Anderson? Will this team go out and add a more veteran guy moving forward into the offseason here? So I think just off the top of my head, that's rattled off quite a few things to look forward to when it comes to training camp getting underway.
I try to go in blank slate, eyes wide open to watch everything. You guys know we'll be there every day. We'll report it. We'll give you the play-by-play. We'll give you the too long didn't read version, the highlights throughout each day. We'll do the podcasts after each practice to recap things. But just overall, what I'm looking at, this offensive line, the starters, I've made the point many times and will make it many more, how important it is for this young offensive line to come together and play well and become a top 10 unit, play to potential. Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick, the real top guys to spotlight. The depth, which is a huge concern for me. There is no depth along this offensive line right now. If they suffer the injuries in 2025, they suffered in 2024. Pittsburgh's in serious trouble. So can someone emerge? Can Pittsburgh make an addition late in the summer? Tough to do, but that's something to watch for. And then just very broadly, I would just say the phrase I'm going to use a lot, and I'm going to take it from Mike Tomlin here, Dave, is divisional labor. What is divisional labor at cornerback, for example? How do they fit the 3 corners? Do you get some 3 corners, 1 safety type of looks? Divisional labor, defensive line, who's lining up where, who's getting back up nose tackle snaps, who's rotating in your base defensive ends with Aquale and Loudermilk and Otomewa and guys like that. Running back divisional labor, how do they distribute Warren and Caleb Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell? Those guys at receiver, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson at tight end, the 3 that are there. So just kind of as a catch-all phrase, division of labor for these, groups that either have a lot of depth or maybe guys that are trying to carve out roles where depth is less evident.
Right. And we're going to be playing a lot of where is guys, that we talked about, some of these guys in the secondary, where are they lining up at? Some of these guys on the offensive line, where are they at within all this? So we will have no shortage of things to talk about at the opening of camp, of just finding out who is where, and maybe we'll get a couple of weights on these guys that we talked about. Some of these defensive linemen potentially. I think the big talk will obviously be Fautano, Broderick Jones, and look, you're starting off camp with 5 guys that you think know. At least we hope they know where that they know where they're going to play, right? So you have more definitive there, and how the rest of the offensive line depth chart shakes out. How does Aaron Rodgers figure in all this at the start of camp after only really minimal work during mandatory mini camp, more as a observer to so to speak. How we command this offense right out of shoot there. So we won't have, as usual, there won't be a shortage of things to talk about, different rabbit holes to go down once you get out there to Latrobe.
Yep, and we'll be covering it. Remember, the first 4 days, they are in helmets, not in pads. So they really, like I said earlier, are glorified OTAs. That's a little more for me about just where are guys aligning, a little less so on the evaluation side of it, because it's not as intense. There aren't as many competition periods. You're not going to get the run game, not going to get the O-line, D-line work that you will once the pads come on. But we'll take it all for what it is, report back, and should be a fun summer.
I agree. I can't wait, as Bart Scott would say.
Dave, I got to congratulate you, too. We had our final episode of Steelers Depot Jeopardy, which aired over the weekend, and you are our winner for the offseason. You had a come-from-behind victory. Your classic Steelers, a quiet, slow start, and a great finish overall. And unlike the Steelers, though, you came home, we took home the gold, Dave, with you love the colleges category. You were all over that, so kudos to you.
Yeah, thank God you had that category, because I think I was shut out until we hit that portion of it and nailed a couple of them there, and just great. I think reading the comments on the site and on your YouTube channel and all, I think people really enjoyed that. I mean, 3 nice episodes there, and maybe we'll build upon it next year though. But it broke up the off season a little bit, and I was just blessed to come out top there, thanks to maybe 1 or 2 key answers, I think.
Yeah, hey, whatever it takes. So yeah, we had good feedback. I think we'll bring it back for next year. All right, Dave, that's basically all I have. I guess just really quickly, last thing, I had my pre-training camp roster prediction go up today. I don't want to go through the whole thing. It's generally the same as before with the new additions added, but the one wrinkle I put on there was I had 7 corners and 3 safeties, which I think is the most unusual aspect of it, keeping Porter, Ramsey, Slade, Bishop, Eccles, Trice, and Pierre, the 3 safeties, just Elliott, Thornhill, and Killebrew. Your thoughts? My rationale was, well, if we're going to talk about Jaylen Ramsey playing a lot of safety or playing some safety, the roster should reflect that. So could Corey Trice even do that? Could Slade do some of that? And even if you keep a Sebastian Castro, is he going to play a whole lot if somebody goes down? Probably not. So that was my rationale for keeping 7 corners, only 3 safeties.
Yeah, I would think if you're only going to keep, essentially you only have 2 safeties here, right? Because of Miles Killebrew, you hope to not get in a situation where he has to play a lot. So if you're only carrying 2 safeties, who is the next guy up, and will that at least be reflected to some degree? Because you don't want to go in cold with Jaylen Ramsey not playing, some free safety, right? So. That would be the pushback. There's 2 areas of pushback that I would give, I think, when it comes to this. First, obviously, the only keeping. Let's face it, it's 2 safeties that you're keeping, right?
Killebrew can play box safety if you needed him to.
I don't need him. I don't want him to.
I don't want him to. I'm just saying if you needed him to, if somebody got hurt. He can tackle, he can play downhill, he can do that. Okay.
All right. So that's the first thing. And the other thing that's quite interesting is you pushed off Connor Hayward off the roster.
Yeah, that was the same as before, and he's a true bubble guy to me. I think I gave him 49% odds in my roster prediction. I'm still bullish on DJ Thomas Jones, the rookie, but of course he's got to show it on special teams. But I thought, Hayward special teams, which is certainly valuable, but I'm keeping so many guys who can play on special teams on my roster. I have Killebrew, I have, Trice, I have Malik Harrison, Carson Bruner, Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer, assuming that Thomas Jones can do some of that. It just felt like, do we need another special teams guy in Connor Hayward? Probably not, and that bumped him off.
I will have Connor Hayward on my initial 53 until I have no reason to have Connor Hayward on my 53, if that makes sense. So I've got
Fair
to
enough.
see, I got to see a little bit more, but I think mine's going to turn out not exactly like yours, but I think obviously we'll be close in a lot of this. And we have seen over time your initial 53-man roster before camps end up being quite a bit different than our final predictions overall due to injury, someone coming on, yada, yada here. But I hope to have mine up before the first practice on Thursday there. I can tell you Connor Hayward would be in that. I imagine I'll be similar to you in a lot of other areas here. Just combing down. Oh, tell me why you have Nick Broker in there as the backup offensive guard.
His offensive line depth is really weak, and it's hard to find a name who fits. Broker's a pretty imposing run blocker. He can play a bit of tackle, play some guard, and so I just kind of picked a name.
All right, so you have 9 offensive linemen. I'm probably going to be more apt to go.
They usually keep 9, though.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an outside addition still coming in. It's hard to believe they're going to be comfortable with the depth they have right now.
Yeah, that'll be a tough decision there. I understand why, to some degree, why you went Broker there, but
I mean, who else? So if it's not Broker, okay, Aiden Williams, Dylan Cook, Gareth Warren, that's all kind of the, same thing.
I might lean a little bit towards Dylan Cook there, I think, because we haven't seen him play a little bit of guard so far. I don't know. I'll have to think this through a little bit more, but I think that would be the 3 areas that if we differ, there will be those three position groups.
All right, fair. And maybe we'll talk about that whenever yours gets posted, but we'll have a lot of camp to discuss. All right, Dave, any reader emails to close out today's show?
Nothing really. I mean, we're already coming in on the 2-hour mark here. We had a lot to cover today with the throwbacks, with the 90 and 30, and kind of a quick look ahead to the start of training camp. So let's bypass the few reader emails that we have in here until, let's say, Wednesday. What is our schedule? What are we going to do on Wednesday here for the show?
I think the plan is we will not do a morning show. We will do one in the afternoon, evening, whenever the dust settles on report date, after, Tomlin speaks, players speak, to kind of wrap up the news of the day, the words of the day, talk about any pup guys, and that hopefully no one had Aaron Rodgers pushing a blocking sled. If we can get through all those things, we'll do that for Wednesday evening. And then Thursday, we will have our first camp recap episode. They will be later. I wish they would have kept the morning practices for so many reasons, but we'll have those in the evening/night starting Thursday.
Yeah, those will probably end up posting probably closer to midnight Eastern, right?
Probably not that late. Probably, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock is my guess. We'll play it by ear.
All right. Let's see. Until Wednesday, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. As I mentioned again, you can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. So until probably Wednesday afternoon. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.